Off a day. This is Data Points. I'm Ryan. I'm your host, and I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam. Today, we're going to be talking with Jay Jones. Jay is the executive vice president of Triple J Enterprises. And I asked Jay to come on because his parent company spans a lot of what I call verticals, meaning industries that are on top, or businesses that are built on top of each other. Like they have Subaru, and then they also have rent-a-cars, and then they have distributorships and restaurants. So there's a synergy that kind of folds in, and they also recently purchased Stroll, and they have Flow EV, and we're one of the leaders in setting up charging stations in support of their electric vehicles. And I think it's really good to hear what someone like that has to say and where they think things are going, and where he thinks the economy is going to evolve moving forward and what opportunities are there. I appreciate you listening. Please like, share, subscribe, or ask questions on any of our channels. It's Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Please send us your questions and give us your comments, and we'll be sure to ask. Thank you. Off a day, and welcome to Data Points. My name is Ryan. I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam, and I'm here with Jay Jones, the executive vice president and reigning executive of the year from Triple J Enterprises. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you, Ryan. It's good to be here.
Jay, I really appreciate you coming in, and one of the reasons I wanted you to come in is we've been talking about a lot of problems with permitting and government infrastructure, but I really wanted to get the take from someone who's representative of a broad base of industries locally, and someone who has been here, whose business has been here and survived the ups and downs of the various generations since World War II. So welcome to the podcast. And one of the first things I'd like to ask you is, can you tell us about the origin story of Triple J?
Yeah, great. It's Triple J started, I believe, in 1984, and actually named after my brother, my sister, and myself, Julie, Jeff, and Jay. And my father started it. He had worked for his brother, my Uncle Ken, for many years at Jones Guerrero, which had Townhouse, Payless grocery stores before the Cowboys took over, and a variety of businesses on island. My father, I guess, at some point decided in the mid-'80s that he was kind of ready to do his own thing. So he bought the Subaru and Bluebird bus franchise from my Uncle Ken and started Triple J Motors. And we don't have Subaru anymore. We still sell Bluebird buses. But yeah, that was the origin. We started out of a container in Tamuning on the same lot as our Honda building is now, next to McDonald's. Our parts department was in one container and had a lean-to off the side for the service department. And we started selling Subarus out of that building. And we grew quickly. It was a good time to be in the car business in the 80s. The yen rate, was very favorable. There was a lot of demand for Japanese cars at the time, and there still is. So it was a good time to get into business, and we were thankfully we were able to grow quickly. I started working there at the time, washing cars and breaking things in the service department. but yeah, my whole family kind of pitched in and did what we could to help it out, and we started growing from there. It's been a great journey.
I guess. So tell me about that growth, right? Like, what was the first from autos? Where was the first derivative product?
So the first thing that happened, interestingly, was we expanded into the Marshall Islands rather quickly. There was an opportunity in the island of Ebi in the Marshall Islands to start a wholesale food operation, and my dad had experience in the food business through his time at Jones Guerrero and Payless and Payless Wholesale and so forth. So that's kind of where things started to diversify, and then we did that continue that operation, the food operations in Saipan, in Guam, in Palau. We still operate in the Marshall Islands and in both Madro and in Ebi. And so yeah, it was rather quickly. I don't remember exactly what year, but it was pretty quickly that we started diversifying into food. My dad has always said that everyone needs a car to get somewhere and they need to eat food. So there's those opportunities are always going to exist.
Well, so was the idea to kind of spin that up and then expand to the islands, and then also you already had like a built-in customer in Payless? Is that kind of the thinking?
I don't know if the Payless customer that was part of the factor, the decision making. Our wholesale operation, our food wholesale operation, has always really focused on restaurants and hotels. Mm-hmm. We don't do a lot of the small package stuff like retail packaging type things. Most of the stuff we focus our efforts on are frozen and fresh, institutional products. And like I said, restaurants and hotels are our primary customers. So I'm not sure that the Payless factored into much of that decision.
I get it, but I think where I'm kind of aligning is kind of where you are now, because you own restaurants, right? And you have that. And so, it seems like your dad was the one who endeavored to kind of expand out to the islands, right? And Saipan, like you said, Palau, the Marshalls, right? And that's territory that your Uncle Ken never really touched, right? And it's like,
well, Saipan definitely, but the Marshalls not so much, and some of the other islands,
right.
Not so much.
And so from those bred opportunities for you, but then from those opportunities, you were able to potentially stand up other business that kind of had synergy with yours.
Yes.
So can you talk to me about kind of the thinking with that and how you expand out and what you do when you consider doing that?
Yeah. So over time, opportunities, like a lot of things on Guam, opportunities come, and often at not the best possible time, but you just you got to know when that opportunity is something that's not going to come around again. Is a really good fit. One of the ones that comes to mind is our Hertz rent-a-car operation that we have. It is a perfect fit for us, which we knew going into it, because it's great. We're able to, because we're in the new car business, we're able to supply vehicles to Hertz at a reasonable rate. And because we're also in the used car business, the vehicles that Hertz is done with, after the 3-year period, we're able to sell as used cars. So that's a very logical synergy there between the two operations. And like you mentioned, the restaurants and the food and the wholesale and the restaurants go together great. So it's definitely something that we've thought of over the years, and something we've tried to take advantage of, places that we have advantages. And Stroll's a similar. We like to say that we try to stay in the areas of transportation and food. We delve outside of there from time to time, but Stroll and Triple J Technologies in general, with our EV charging business, Flow EV, they're both clearly transportation related, and so they make sense too, as far as that logic.
And I see that a lot here. As an example, when you get into technology business here, sometimes you have to stand up the structure to facilitate the business that you want to run, because it doesn't exist, or you have to facilitate some component of the business that you wouldn't normally have to in a market with more structure and scale. Yeah. And so that's kind of like with my journey on the questioning with you, is to just kind of highlight that. It's really hard to stand up a new technology or a new segment or a new business if you don't have this infrastructure. It's a lot riskier, or you don't have a built-in customer. That's why I mentioned, having a potential outlet when you forge in when you start with a new business, is because it really helps to know that you have someone that's going to buy what you're selling.
No, it definitely helps. Yeah.
And so if you have a built-in customer to kind of stand up that loss leading infrastructure, because you have some costs. So to cover at least your sunk costs and get you to a place where you're operating, that really helps. And I see not just your business, but a lot of other businesses incorporating that model, right? So like so you have restaurants, and then you have the cars, you have the rent-a-car, and now, like you said, you have the Flow EV, and it all folds into those lines, right? But in some places, you'd be content to focus on two components and just have ready customers.
And Guam is great in that it gives you the opportunity to do some of those things. Whereas, if you're in certain places in the States, there's already we're also in the tire business. There may already be 100 tire stores in your town, and it just doesn't really make sense to jump into that business. But Guam allows us to have some of those opportunities because we don't necessarily have the depth of industry in some of those areas. So there's definitely opportunities out there. You just have to know where to look. And if you're in that particular industry, they become obvious a lot of times. So.
Well, not specific to Stroll, right? But one of the things I'm highlighting is, there's a lot of people who have been in the market since the 80s, but now they're aging out like your dad, right? And now the next generation, like you or even your sons or your nephews, are kind of coming in and taking over. What changes have you seen in the way you guys do business and the way you integrate technology that you see that have really been like killer apps for you?
Yeah, you mentioned my son Jake. He works for us in the business, has for the last few years. He just got his degree, his master's degree in data analytics.
Okay.
And not something I would have ever thought to get, but definitely, it's important, obviously, to have a grasp of how to use data, and in this day and age, especially where so much data exists. I came up in a time where, before the internet, where, you didn't have any data, you didn't know, if you didn't know someone to ask, a lot of times you just didn't know. Mm-hmm. You couldn't find out, but having access to so much data and then knowing what to do with that data are two different things. And so I'm proud of the fact that he was able to get his master's and in an industry that can be so beneficial to us in the future. And so, yeah, there's definitely a mind shift in the way the younger generation looks at things.
Yeah, I think the great thing about data is there's transparency and accountability, and there's direct evidence, and it's measurable. So what kind of data do you use? So your son, data analytics, right? So how are you using data in your business, and how are you sourcing that data?
So one of the cool things about the automotive industry is that for decades now, we've had the Guam Automobile Dealers Association, and we share industry data every month. We share what our
amongst each other.
We share, and when that information also gets out to the media. Mm-hmm. We share it with the media as well. I guess that's a better way to put it. But so every month, I know what my competitors have done. I know, how I get a report card every month mm-hmm. that shows how I'm doing against my competitors, which is a lot of industries, you don't have that information. No, you just have to guess by, whatever means possible, how you're doing. But I get a report card every month that says, I have 23% market share this month. I had 24%, for the year. And I can tell where I am in relation to where I've been in the past, because I have, 30 years of new car sales data to go by. And so that's probably the most important way that we use data, is just to be able to measure ourselves against the competition and to know if what we're doing is working or if it's not working. And it's one of the best things I think about the auto industry is, and it can also be the most frustrating thing, is at the end of every month, how you did, how you compared against your peers, your competitors, and then you have an opportunity to start all over again with a clean slate and try and do better this month, and a lot of industries don't have that ability, to see where they are on such a regular basis.
Very few locally. And do you get a free T-shirt if you're like a
No, there's no T-shirt.
No, there should be.
No T-shirts, yeah.
Just like I'm number one for like the month or something.
Yeah, no T-shirts. Yeah.
I'll put it in the suggestion box.
Yeah,
Jay.
All right.
No, but so how do you aggregate this data? So it's all self-reported.
Yes, it's all self-reported. Well, it's self-reported now. Prior to COVID, we had a company who was using data that Reventax put out every month. They put out a registration report that showed all new registrations on the island. So you had to filter out like cars that were brought in from the States or military personnel or whatever. But so they provided that data on a very regular basis. And so we had a company called QMark who used to take that data and put it into a digestible report.
Is that Jay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Put it into a digestible report that we could use. During COVID, a lot of things didn't get done the way they used to get done. So that report stopped coming out regularly. And we, as an industry, we needed the information, whether it was coming from DMV or not. So we went back to a self-reporting mode, which is what we had been doing maybe a decade before. So yes, it's all self-reported, and it's not just for our information. All of our manufacturers want to know this information, so we all need to report back. And so it's data that we have to compile.
And then underlying that, you have all kinds of other information that you collect from the dealer side that integrate in terms of stats. But you don't share that to the wider market. But do you share that with like insurance companies and things like that?
As needed, we share. I mean, we share a lot of it internally, obviously, with our staff, and as needed, for different departments. We don't share it outside a lot because a lot of this proprietary stuff that there's too much information can not always a great thing. When you have competitors and you're trying to maintain an advantage or trying to gain an advantage.
So that's one of the things that I see consistently is the government they aggregate the information, but it's not always so readily available in a format that's digestible for us, the wider industry at large. So we have to take it or have a third party come in and put it all together. But kind of my take is everybody needs this data. And I think the government now needs to pay more attention to making aggregating this data, number one, parsing it into formats that are easily digestible and making it available to everybody so they can decision. And I think the state of where everything is makes that increasingly hard because the government systems are increasingly decrepit. And so with a business in the current environment where you operate on such small margins, especially a big business like you, right? It's all scale. And the ability to see information a little bit sooner really helps you with those margins, especially projecting out, right? If I can be forward thinking enough to see, okay, this is what I think the business is going to be in 2030, and I have this long supply chain, like I'm sure you do, where it's like a long time horizon to order cars and stuff. If you had the data to anticipate market segments and order in advance and kind of bank on, to take advantage of your son's education.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Imagine how advantageous that could be at scale. So what data would you like to see that would help your business moving forward? And what data would you like the government to provide to you that you think would be advantageous to you as an enterprise moving forward?
In the car business, it's I'm specifically talking about the car business. Most of my time is spent in the car business, to be fair. We have the companies, divide and conquer, right? So a lot of my time spent on the car business. So I think of the car business, it's very driven by people's income, right? On how much disposable income they have, what their income is. Debt to income ratios are very important because almost everybody needs a loan to buy a car, and the banks are using that data to determine loan decisions. So any information that we can get that gives us a picture of what the population looks like, what their income looks like, what their debt looks like. I mean, the more of that information that we can get, the better we can try and get a handle on what the market is doing and what it's going to do going in the future. And just not a lot of economic data, up-to-date economic data out there. How manufacturers and different companies ask us for economic data about Guam. And a lot of times we're giving them data that's 2 or 3 years old, because they're asking for, fill in the blank with this information, right? And so the latest information I have is 2023 or whatnot. And so, I think we'll all agree that's not helpful, and getting to a point in this day, where you have everything else is at your fingertips. Data like that should be more at your fingertips.
I agree. And I also think that sitting around waiting for the government to build a solution is almost kind of like a recipe for disaster because, again, they won't know the information that you care about. Whereas an arrangement like you've come to with the auto dealers to self-police and self-submit or at least aggregate that in in that demand under one place to collect the information and make it available to all of you is advantageous. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what has to happen. I think the trade organizations like the Chamber, GHRA, the realtors, they all need to come together and say, this is what we want, and this is what we want to aggregate, and this is how we want to present it, and make an effort to collect that and present it in a way that's actionable. But there's also an education piece, right? Because I can give you all the data that you want, Jay, but if you don't know how to fold it into your business, if you don't know how to change your operation to incorporate that data and plan accordingly, then it's almost useless. Mm-hmm. So tell me about how you've incorporated the data into your business and how you use it now.
Well, on the motor side specifically, a big part of my job and a big part of anybody in the auto industry is marketing. It probably takes as much time as anything else that we do as a percentage is working on marketing. And so obviously deciding how to go forward with your marketing, what you're going to focus on, what you're going to, try and the message you're going to try and get out. You use the data from what you've been able to accomplish and to help make those decisions, and how well some of those decisions worked, and if they worked at all. So a lot of times that's the only way that you can really know how effective you're being on the marketing side, which, like I said, is a huge part of what we do, is trying to figure out what motivates our buyers, and then having the data to support, that did work, that didn't work, it's a big part of what we do every day.
And so I imagine your son is kind of folding that into like process.
Yeah, he's actually working his way through the business, which is kind of the same thing I did. Was exactly the same thing I did. I worked growing up before I went off to college and high school, and weekends I would work, in the PDI or in the in the washing cars or in the shop or whatnot. Then I went off to college, got a degree, came back, and my dad put me back into washing cars again, which was kind of a shocker. But he was a smart guy, because he knew that things had changed, and I needed to know what the situation was now. And so I did that for a little while and worked my way through the business in a variety of different roles in the service side and the sales side, part side. And so my son's kind of doing the same thing now. He worked as a service manager, worked his way up to service manager in our Ford store, did that for a couple of years, and now he's moved on. He's over at our Honda store as an assistant sales manager. So, he has used his background and his education in a number of ways throughout the different roles that he's in. He's always sending me spreadsheets that, sometimes I can't read. sometimes I can't. But he's dragging us, into, the 21st century in a way that we needed, I think we all need it.
Well, that's what I see, right? I'm sure your son's good at math, right? That's why he's in analytics.
Yeah.
But you have to know the business context.
Mm-hmm.
And so in real estate, I'm an expert in the context of real estate. I can look at a mortgage instrument and I can tell you 10 different things about the borrower just based on that. In the same way, I'm sure you can look at a F&I statement or like a warranty and find like 100 different, even like a VIN number, and you can pull 100 information points just based on that, right? And so the context is important in the various industries, and that's kind of to my point where the government's not going to be good at understanding what data points to collect to pull that context out of the data, but that's why there needs to be more alignment from the stakeholders in terms of letting the government know or internalizing that pool of data to make sure that you're pulling the context that you need and make the larger case for aggregation. Because, I don't want to get political here, but we have an election coming up. And would you agree with the statement that we can't continue doing business on Guam in the way that we have to this point?
I would agree that we definitely need to see some changes but I think that has been true, forever, right? I mean, Guam, there's a lot of wonderful things about Guam. It's my home. I was born here, raised here, and it'll be my home forever. But one thing I think we can all admit about Guam is that sometimes it usually takes us a little while to catch up, and I mean, which is not shocking. I mean, we're in the in the middle of the Pacific, we're very remote, but it does take us a little while to catch up in most ways, and in a lot of ways, less so in recent years, that since the advent of technology and the internet and so forth. But I think that's a statement that we could have said throughout our history for the most part, is that we need to do better. We need to catch up faster. We need to be more not only catching up, but we need to be setting a path in a lot of ways. And it's definitely something that administrations can certainly provide guidance and lead the way on. I don't think they can fix everything, it's not government's role really to fix everything. But I think they can definitely lead the way, and certain administrations have done better than others in doing that.
Yeah, I agree. But part of leading the way is understanding when the system is, as it's built, is irreparably broken to the point where we really need to rethink. And I think as a community, we need to rethink the way we're doing a lot of things, because our community has changed significantly in terms of our demographic mix, in terms of the needs of the community, in terms of the hardships that face the community. And so one of the things as a large ongoing enterprise, talk about workforce. Tell me about how the changes in the community have affected your workforce and your ability to be competitive and retain key personnel and advance into key industries like technology and flow EV.
Yeah. Workforce has been challenging over the years a lot of ways. It's always, you can always find people to fill a role, but to find people with expertise in that role is always a challenge. And so what we've had to do, we've tried hiring off-island people from off-island who are experts or have all this experience, but it just never really works out the way you hope it does. Either they can't settle in, to the island life, or, their resume or interviews or whatever just didn't reveal the real person that you were dealing with. We've just had very spotty success with that over the years. So we have really tried our best to develop talent from within, and promote from within, and to identify people who show interest and the aptitude to do more and to take on more responsibility. And I think we've done a really good job of that at Triple J in general. Is developing our own talent from within. But it's once again back to our remote location and where we are in the world. I think that's always going to be a challenge to a certain degree. Clearly we can do better. With regards to education, and I think UOG is doing a great job as far as expanding its curriculum and the degrees that it's offers. So I think we're slowly getting better as far as developing the kind of workforce that Guam really needs. But it certainly remains one of our bigger challenges.
What do you think the workforce moving forward looks like?
I'm an optimist at heart, I think, and maybe sometimes it's misplaced optimism. But I feel good about in general about about the younger generation. I think there are going to be always a good number of them who appreciate hard work and who understand that hard work is what gets you where you need to be eventually. And so just looking at my kids, they're smart, they're motivated, and my kids, my friends' kids, I think that there's a lot of people on Guam who care about the future of Guam and who really want to do what they can, to see Guam grow. That's why I talked about wanting to get my kids back here, because I think they could be, of real benefit to our company specifically, but to Guam in general, and to have more of that generation returning to the island after going to college and getting some experience. A lot of my friends, I went to FD, and A lot of my friends, they did the same thing though. They went off to college and they never came back. Well, they came back, but I mean, they never came back to work.
Sure.
And just being able to attract them back here with high paying jobs that give them the rewards that they're looking for, not just financially, but in so many other ways. That's another critical component to having the workforce that we need to really grow the island.
Yeah, and I think Dean Jones from UOG, I talked to her, and she painted the scenario in which our young people are leaving because they have no reason to stay, because you don't have a lot of accessibility to travel, right? Because it's expensive to get out of here. You don't have a lot of social life because there's nothing really built around the university. It's a commuter campus. You end up living with your parents, right? And so, it's not so attractive for someone to kind of stick around and do it versus, I'll stay at my aunt's house in California and, I'll sleep on the couch, but I'll get a job. I'll be making $17 an hour at McDonald's and, whatever.
Yeah, no.
But I'll be living my life.
You'll see a path. You'll see a path, right?
Yeah. So that's the thing. I think you can't see a path here. And so there's a gap. And so you have the people who want to stay for whatever reason. You have the people who can't go, and you have and that's kind of your pool, and the people that you can get to come here, which you say is problematic. So what are there any strategies that you use in terms of recruitment or things that you would think would help to bring people back that we can do as a community or the government can do?
From what I hear from my own kids and from my friends' kids, a lot of it's lifestyle stuff. It's just, I can't do that. I can't go to concerts there. The kind of lifestyle stuff that they're interested in, and concerts is probably a bad example, but that's stuff that is going to take time to develop, but on the flip side, I think that's all the stuff that our kids want in order to come back home is a lot of the same stuff that our tourists want when they want to come, to Guam. They want a different experience. They want different things to look at. They want they want to eat different things. They want and I think our kids are a lot the same way. I think if we can build a tourism industry and a destination that our tourists are excited about, I think our kids will be excited about some of those same things.
I gotcha. Data Points is powered by GTA Business because reliable data starts with a reliable network. If your current provider is slowing you down, it's time to make the switch. GTA Business delivers faster speeds, better reliability, and local support you can count on. And as Guam's only full-stack provider, from small business, enterprise, and government, GTA offers fiber, wireless, and secure data center solutions to keep your business running without compromise. Bring your business to GTA and start getting more from your network today. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the businesses that I'm excited about that you have, right? Notwithstanding the restaurants and the autos, but the progression into Stroll, right? And then the Flow EV, because, we're a technology business and getting adoption in the market, the wider market is hard. So, you were one of the front runners at EVs, bringing EVs here and creating the infrastructure. Can you tell me about that journey and what the obstacles were and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so Triple J Technologies is the company that we started, and under Triple J Technologies at this point is the Stroll rideshare, and then Flow EV, which you mentioned. Flow EV just kind of happened because EV vehicles, were coming out, and we had some pretty exciting ones from some of the companies that we represent, especially Kia. But the pushback that we were getting from customers, I love the way it drives, and so forth, is that, the charging aspect. Most EV customers on Guam charge at home. My wife drives an EV, we charge at the house. And I think most customers are that way. But in order to develop a market where it becomes more mainstream to own an EV, you need to have charging options for people who live in apartments or condominiums or whatnot. It's just not practical to charge at home. And so we identified that very early on as a point of issue for potential customers. And no one else was talking about doing it. So, well, let's get started, And so we got started. We have 9 locations now on island. I think we have like 9 locations with like close to 20 chargers, I think, in those 9 locations. It's not big business. It's far from big business. And we knew that going in. We knew that it was not going to be a moneymaker for many years. But it was one of those things where we felt like somebody had to do it, and we were in a position to do it. So let's get started. We have about 200 users at this point, and I can't remember exactly how many charging sessions a month, but somewhere in the neighborhood, a couple hundred charging sessions a month, and so it's one of those things that we just hope that someday it makes sense, and if it doesn't, it wasn't like we lost millions, but we're hoping that the industry grows to meet the demand of EVs. But the challenge is getting in specifically to EVs or the charging segment. With convincing, still some that we're working on, convincing some of the property owners, that it made sense for them. We've had both. We've had property owners who reached out to us and said, hey, we want to do this. And then there's locations that we were very interested and thought would be great for the network that we kind of had to convince them that it was a good idea. And so I think with anything new, with any new technology or new industry, it's going to be the case. But we're happy with the way it's going so far. And the EV market in general has slowed down dramatically. If it had kept up at the pace that it started at, I think it would be a different story. But EVs are still going to happen. They're still coming. They're still going to be a greater and greater percentage of the market. But that change is clearly going to happen much more slowly than initially anticipated, which is fine. I mean, consumers decide, right? Consumers aren't ready for it, then that's all that matters, because consumers decide.
Well, the automotive industry is going to change significantly, right? They're manufacturing cars in new ways. There's a trend towards like low cost and engineering trends where you can do it in different pieces.
Like a skateboard design, where they just move the different tops onto the different bottoms. Yeah,
right. It's like a 3-piece segment instead of an 8, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But just like Musk, right? He had to stand up all those charging stations to make the Tesla network viable, and now you have those problems around that infrastructure, or you don't, right? But it's a key point of getting adoption. Like we talked about, sometimes you have to build the infrastructure that you need to make it viable. And then plus the added benefit is you get a nice parking space.
That is a benefit. It's certainly a benefit in some of our locations. It's a great benefit. I love going to the Ducet.
Right.
Because I take my wife's car, of course, because it's EV, and great parking at the Ducet. And not surprisingly, that's I think our still top performing charger is the Ducet. Micronesia Mall or Ducet. I think they go back and forth.
Right. Yeah, it's the perfect parking.
Yeah,
I'm buying the EV for the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so standing up that tech infrastructure, but what do you think about self-driving? Because not even the way people are buying cars is different now, because now it's like, okay, I'm buying it for self-driving. I'm not buying it for performance now. I'm buying it for interior comfort. Right? So now the outside of the car, I don't care what it looks like. I want a nice interior, right? Yeah. And that's to some advantage, right? Because a lot of it was styling and brand and positioning. Now it's comfort inside, right? So talk to me about where you see that going.
Yeah, I'm kind of a car guy, so I love driving the car is the most important thing to me in the way it goes,
okay.
But you're 100% right that, and I think that's been the case forever. There's a lot of people, car is just an appliance, it's really just something to get them from A to B, and it's something they have to have, and that's fine. And there's plenty of appliance type cars out there, super reliable, A to B, and you don't have to worry about it. But then there are, also they're the enthusiasts or the people who really, have an interest in vehicles. And so I think there's always going to be that differentiation depending on who the consumer is. But you're right, as self-driving becomes more important or becomes more common, then different things will become important, having interiors that you can configure in different ways. Now they have ones, that turn into a living room,
Right.
And it's just, that's another cool thing about the auto industry, the way that it changes and morphs and becomes different things over time. But self-driving is something through our Stroll business, something that we're certainly exploring. There was an article that our GM, James, did a couple of weeks ago, or maybe longer, about our thoughts on self-driving. And it's definitely something that we have been actively discussing with some outside companies who are in that space. Something to develop, because I think Guam's a great place. It's like EVs. Guam's a great place to drive an EV. Because you don't have range anxiety. And I know we're jumping around here. I apologize.
No, it's totally cool.
You don't have range anxiety. You charge your car a couple times a week, and you pretty much can drive the whole week. You're not taking long distance trips. And in a similar way, self-driving makes a lot of sense here, because they're short trips. There's not highways where people are going 80 miles an hour. And once the technology, which I think it's almost there, if it's not already there, it's perfect for small communities like Guam is, and it's perfect to get people. If we did it, or when we do it, the thought is focus primarily on things like airport to Tumon runs, or try and keep it. You want to grow it, right? You want to grow it organically, and you want to grow it in a way that everybody's comfortable with and is safe and so forth. Which I think self-driving, in generally is safer than humans driving. That's, I think the data is speaking of data, tends to point to that. And but it's going to take a while. I think the communities needs to get used to it, get used to the idea.
Yeah, you got to socialize a little bit,
Yeah, exactly.
And then. But so what do you think we're close in infrastructure to achieving? Because I've heard through Gita that there was a company that wanted to do it, but then some of the road reflectors are wrong, and
I don't think that we could do it today, but I think,
and then even the compute, right, that you need in terms of the infrastructure. Sorry, I didn't mean
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that aspect, but I know as far as like the roads themselves, that they need to have different vehicles, different types of vehicles use different technology, right? But I think in general, you want to have very distinct lines on the road. You want to have the lighting good. You want, the car has to have things to follow, right? And so we may not be there today, but we don't want to start preparing, for something that's coming 3 or 4 years from now.
Yes.
In 3 or 4 years, we have to start preparing now for that. And so I think that we will be there. And, there's been a lot of road improvement on island over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think that, we're probably being in a position, especially that one strip between Marine Drive and the airport, that I can't remember what number it is, but if we're going to run visitors back and something. If we're going to run visitors back and forth in the airport at Tumon, it's a pretty critical component, right? And that road certainly isn't ready for prime time yet, So there are pieces that are not there yet, but I think they will be there in the next 3 or 4 years that make self-driving a very realistic option.
Well, that aligns because you own Bluebird still, right?
Yeah. I don't know what their self-driving capabilities are, but yeah.
It's just you put it on the steering wheel, Jay. No. But so with that, with the journey to self-driving, and I was in Phoenix, and those Waymos driving around are cool, right?
Yeah.
But Mary Rhodes, right, with JHRA, one of the things that is her main issue is mass transit, and it's not just her issue; it's also an issue of accessibility for people for the workplace and people for who have disabilities and can't travel. That affects their ability to get there.
Yeah.
What she had proposed is, drop-offs, like, with a freeway, aggregation points, and then the bus from there, right? But I can totally see how that would work with your self-driving model. Mm-hmm. It's something that, with the LiDAR data that's coming in with all the drone guys and stuff, pulling it together. But I think it's just, I don't know from an infrastructure side, like you say, we're there yet in terms of the compute, and then, of course, like the infrastructure that you need on the road.
Yeah, our GM, James Rosenberg, he'd be better better equipped to
technologies.
answer those questions on the specific technology, because he's really done a lot of research and he's talked to a lot of people in that industry. But he feels strongly that we will be in a good position to pursue it in the next few years.
Yeah, and that helps the restaurants because then you have it all delivered for.
Yeah, that's something else would be nice. Yeah.
If you think about it, like you get the buses, you get the food delivery, and then you get a better flow through of traffic, like you say. Just keep all those guys in the right lane. They'll move in unison, and maybe run over a couple people here and there. Sorry, pardon our progress, right? Yeah. You got insurance, Jay?
Yeah, no. Let's hope we can't have that, but we definitely. I think self-driving makes a lot of sense for Guam, and I think we'll definitely be seeing it.
Okay, so you definitely be seeing it. Have you had a conversation with the government about it?
Specifically with the government, no. I think we're a little premature. We're a little premature in our plans to get to that point. I think it's more important to establish potential partners who we don't have the technology, right? So we have to have a partner that does have the technology and who is interested in doing business in this region. There's a lot of components that have to come together for that to work. So we need to get some of those ducks in a row, before we march, up to the governor's office. But I think it's important, to have a good plan. It's not like my dad would say, you don't want to ready, fire, aim. Ready, aim, fire. So we're in the ready phase, and we're working on the aim phase.
No, and so that leads into kind of that vertical structure and that loss leader structure that you can put in place, because again, building a technology business like that, you have to put in all the infrastructure a lot of times before you even have a customer. Mm-hmm. And that's significantly expensive. Mm-hmm. Just like with the EV charging stations, you don't know if that's going to work out. You have an idea, but there's infrastructure and development. You have to pay people sometimes for these places. You have to build this whole network around it, and it's so forward looking. Uh-huh. And so in a way, that's a first mover advantage because that entrenches you, right? If you're the first mover, but it's also a huge risk.
Oh, no.
So one of the things I really appreciate, and one of the programs that we've taken advantage of, is the SSBCI program, Destino Guam. Mm-hmm. And that's where GITA will invest in your business in almost a 1-to-1 rate, in a way that venture capital will. But you just have to pay them out with equity instead of like a loan, right? Which is fine. Yeah. But one of the problems there is, again, like you say, talent, right? So GITA can give you all the money in the world, but sometimes you need the advisory. Sometimes you need the expertise and the capacity, and there's not a lot of opportunities here to get that. You have the Small Business Development Center, and those guys do a great job, right? And you have, there's other resources through Chamber, but in a specific industry like tech, that's really hard for someone, and that's where we're moving. That's true. And so that's one of my concerns for an entrepreneur, like even someone who's well-funded and well-backed. They don't have that expertise, it's just going to fall by the wayside. And it's almost like you're throwing money and you're just going to like burn it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? And what do you think we can do a better job in terms of giving opportunities to relay this expertise or partner with mentors to make sure that businesses succeed? Because I really do think we're going to really need to rely on entrepreneurship and stuff like that moving forward to do anything here. I think a lot of the businesses are aging out. They're going to be selling. So these new kids like that are getting out of school now, almost a millionaire on Main Street, Cody Sanchez. They're looking for these aging boomer businesses, trying to apply technology and lever them up. What infrastructure do you think that exists here or should exist that would give you hope that those opportunities open up moving forward?
That's a good question, and one that honestly I've not really contemplated. I'm not sure I have a good answer for you, right? On that, it's just not something that. It's something I'd like to think about more. I will think about more, but it's not something that I have contemplated. I could totally see how it would be, serious challenge for people trying to come up. I mean, we have more access to information obviously than we ever have before. I mean, you could watch videos and you can research stuff online all day, but there's nothing's going to replace having a one-to-one relationship with somebody who can help mentor you or help you develop your plans or whatever. And so I'm not sure where that comes from or how that evolves. But it's certainly something that needs to that would be beneficial.
And I think that's what's missing in our workforce development component is the advisory capacity or opportunities to partner with people who are deep in industries that we want to cultivate. And so, yeah, it's great that we give people money and good loans and GITA QCs and things like that to incentivize them. But at the same time, if you don't align them with expertise, you don't know what you don't know, and you're just doomed.
You're destined to fail.
Exactly. Yeah. And then even like with the business, right? After the second year, structure is so important because then you get into your margin, your repeatability and consistency. So a lot of people can get to this second year, but from there on, that's where a lot of them fail because the repeatability and the consistency is a challenge.
Maybe there's something GITA, could develop over, in the future is some type of program to help some of these people, kind of an on-ramp, situation for a certain amount of time helps them, develop whatever their business or whatever their idea is.
Right. Or even just like a advisory board or somebody where you have this capacity, because sometimes it's just knowing who to call.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, totally. That's one of the best things about Guam is, if you've been doing business here for any amount of time, you pretty much always know somebody to call, and that's invaluable,
But that's some of the structural advantages of having uncles and family members in the business and just that experiential
classmates or, whatever it is, if you try, it's easy to form a network here, but some of these people you're talking about, maybe they're too young or they're too new to have done that. And, being able to work off of other people's networks could be invaluable for them. So,
yeah. Well, one thing that you probably have a better handle on just from your experience is opportunity execution and leverage. And I think sometimes people are just scared to ask or talk to someone and put themselves out there. And I think part of entrepreneurship is exactly that, putting yourself out there and putting yourself at risk
totally.
and taking a chance on something. So what do you think are things that people should be taking a chance on, kind of moving forward that you think would be advantageous to Guam?
You're talking about business, but
entrepreneurship.
Business, yeah. I touched on it a little bit earlier. Tourists are looking for new experiences these days. And I think all tourists throughout time have been looking for new experiences, but we have to be able to differentiate ourselves from other destinations by offering experiences that those destinations don't offer. And I think encouraging more of our young people or new entrepreneurs to start identifying some of those areas. Ginger Cruz did an article in, I don't know if it was
she's in the Post.
In the Post. Okay, it was in the Post. And I thought it was a really, really well-written article. She was comparing New Zealand. She'd taken a trip to New Zealand as a tourist, as a visitor. And she was comparing Guam to New Zealand and how the different places have invested in tourism as their main industry. And she talked about, building a foundation for tourism and then having the government builds the foundation for tourism, and then the entrepreneurs bring the experiences or bring the activities or whatnot that visitors want to do. And I think there's still so much opportunity. We're not directly related through Triple J in a lot of direct to tourist strolls, probably the closest thing, direct to tourist industries. But there's certainly a lot of opportunity out there in providing experiences to tourists, whether it's a shopping experience or a eating experience or a experience, for tourists. And that's where I would tell entrepreneurs to focus some of their time, because, Guam, we're always going to be 3 hours by plane from Japan, Korea, Taiwan, major travel places with major tourist visitors, looking for places to go and spend their money. We're always, I hope, going to have the natural beauty that Guam has, and so I think that we need to put all of our eggs, or if not all of them, most of them in that tourism basket, we need to go all in and do the best possible job that we can. And that means bringing our entrepreneurs along to help build that experience that our visitors are looking for. So that's where I would encourage them to put their efforts if I was trying to guide them.
Why do you think Saipan does a better job on beautification than Guam does?
That's a good question. I lived in Saipan for 11 years, and it is certainly a beautiful spot, and they are a beautiful island, and they do a great job maintaining their especially their tourist sites and just everything else in general. I don't know the answer to that, and that'd be a really good. I'd be very curious and interested to hear someone with more experience in that realm answer that question, because it is a very good question, because Saipan does a wonderful job in general.
Repeatedly you hear it. It's like, it's that, there's like everything's going out of business, but at the same time, it's amazingly beautiful.
No, they've definitely put some practices in place over the years, and it's at this point, it seems like it's muscle memory, and thank God it is, because of the economic conditions that Saipan is experiencing. You would think that'd be maybe one of the first things to get tossed, but they've continued to do a good job in taking care of the natural beauty of the island, and you definitely learned some lessons from them. So
I asked you the question earlier about opportunities for entrepreneurs. What are you buying if somebody's selling? It's Triple J, right? Like, I'm a business, I have enterprise, I have distributorships, the restaurants, the rent-a-car, I've got self-driving. What is something that you wish someone would start here that would support your industry?
Interesting question. I mean, on our food wholesale division, we're always excited about new restaurants coming to town, because there are always potential customers. I'd like to see some of the hotels, like the Pacific Star. I drive past that a lot of times. Like to see some of these properties on island that are neglected or abandoned. Like to see them come back to life again, because that's potential customers as well. But I think Guam has a lot of opportunities for just experiences. Like I said, when we travel off island, we go do, there's a lot of fun things that that you want to do, and everything has to be, everyone's taking pictures or posting on Instagram or making videos or whatever, and that's what our visitors want to do, and they want to do whatever, bungee jumping or
we need our own ayahuasca experience. You got to get the shot, the Sirianos to make a little.
No, I mean that kind of stuff, cultural
100%.
stuff.
Yes.
I mean, if we, Guam has such a great culture and such a rich culture, and it, letting tourists experience what that means, other than, I mean, the fire dances are cool and all that stuff, is exciting, for tourists to watch, but real cultural experiences, I think is what they're really hungry for, and being able to provide more of that, but also, exciting things, I mean, zip lines and, just stuff that you can't do at home, I mean, you go on vacation to do different things, or I do, to see different things, do different things, eat different things. And that's what our tourists are looking for too, if you ask me. And that's where the opportunities lie for our people.
You think the third leg's coming back? You think tourism's coming back?
I think so. I don't think we got a choice. I think in general, I don't really think we have much of a choice. That we can't rely on the federal government. We can't rely on the buildup. I mean, that business is great right now, and it's welcome. But there's ups and downs. They're going to stop spending money, or things are going to change internationally or geopolitically or whatever. So we can't rely on that. One thing we can always rely on is our proximity to Asia and our natural beauty. And as long as we take care of our natural beauty, then I think we have a chance to attract more visitors. So.
One of the things, like crazy ideas, right? Do you have any crazy ideas about, like, it's like, the government was subsidizing power by like $100 during COVID.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What if they did that for businesses? That in certain industries where they subsidize utilities, or instead of certain income things, like you bring the cost of living down by bringing the cost of power down.
Mm-hmm.
You put tell you Guam mad, but like a nuclear reactor, you made that cost. But it seems to me like the infrastructural costs are pretty much your loss leader here. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah. I mean, well, we do have QC program, right? But that
Property taxes, come on.
yeah, but I mean, my point was that, but I think we need a QC program on a much smaller scale for
Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, for entrepreneurs, and maybe you're maybe you're not charging them power for the first 2 years, or maybe you're not in simple things, maybe you're not charging them, maybe you're giving them kind of rent assistance for the first couple of years, or whatever, but a small scale QC. Was something that I think new entrepreneurs could definitely benefit from, and it's what we need is small, interesting experiences, and so it's a great idea, I think, to do something along those lines is to figure out small ways to help new businesses that mean a lot to them, but in the whole scheme of things, that income doesn't mean that much to the government,
right? Yeah, it's like if it cultivates like a sustainable population base and you have a workforce, then great. Yeah, let's subsidize power for a little.
Yeah,
they did it in COVID. Yeah. We can do it more significantly, and we can do it in industries that matter, and that would be more significant than, say, a property tax rebate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jay, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. I think we went over.
We did. Okay. All right. No, it was fun. Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your insight, and look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Pleasure meeting you.
That was a great podcast with Jay. He laid on a lot of insight. He showed why he's the executive of the year, because it shows that he's put a lot of thought into where Guam is going and where they're positioning themselves moving forward. The evolution of their company was, in terms of building the islands and building these internal structures that perpetuate. And now as kids are coming into the business and they're looking at analytics, and really that's the growth model, right? Succession planning and growth and integrating new processes into your model. And it's really great to hear his insight. And it'd be great to hear your insight on any of our platforms. Please give us a like, share, subscribe, or save on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Data Points.